I don't want my friends and family to buy my book. And that sounds funny, I know, but I want to teach Amazon who to show my book to. And, my friends who normally buy mysteries and my mom who normally buys cookbooks, I don't really want Amazon to think that's my buyer. You're driving that traffic. You want your ideal reader.
Hello, everyone. April Cox here. We are here today with a very special guest speaker and a topic that everybody is always looking forward to, which is book marketing. So I'm going to talk a little bit. Let me introduce our guest speaker today. I have Julie Broad. She is Julie the Book Broad, founder of Book Launchers, overall #1 best-selling author, and top 20 under 40 award winner for business success. Through her company, Book Launchers, her YouTube channel, booklaunchers.tv, and many speaking and media engagements, she helps aspiring authors write a book readers want to read, and also help the author achieve their dream goals. Learn more about writing and marketing your own impact and income boosting book. So you've got lots to chat about with today's topic of book marketing. Thank you for being here, Julie. So happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm really here for you guys. So any book marketing questions you have, but I will say all my expertise is in nonfiction. So, I can say possibly things work with fiction, but I'll mostly defer to April for that.
Yes.
So one of the big things, I just launched a new book last week called Self Promote and Succeed. And one of the big reasons I wrote that book is because there's lots of tactical advice out there. So you can find how to run Amazon ads. You can find advice on, even choosing your Amazon categories and running your keywords. And you can find advice on, getting on podcasts. But one of the big things that we do at Book Launchers that I felt like was worthy of a book was thinking about your bigger picture goals. What are you writing the book for? I don't mean like writing the book to sell the book. I mean, what's your bigger picture? Like, what's success really look like for you? And for a lot of nonfiction authors, that is, getting more speaking engagements or getting paid for those speaking engagements. It's growing your business through lead generation or through getting more clients or turning your content into a course. There's lots of other reasons that nonfiction authors write a book. And so what we do is look at, okay, what's that bigger picture goal that you're going for? And how are you going to not only write a book that's positioned to help get you there, but then when you're doing your marketing, what are you doing that actually leads to that? Because one of the things, there's kind of two things that are somewhat broken in the publishing world. One is the launch model. One is this like intense drive to have this massive launch. And I've done it. I launched a book to #1 overall on Amazon, so #1 in print books. And I know how exhausting that was, all the work that went into it and all the stuff that happened after that to just keep the momentum going. But it was fun. And it was, I'm glad I did it. But it's not necessarily, if you don't have a huge launch, that doesn't mean your book is a failure. It's better to have a stronger launch to build momentum. But really, it's looking at, that big picture goal of what you're driving towards. But the reason we have this big launch model is because of the publishing industry. Because when somebody gets a book deal, basically it's the sales leading up to launch that determine how many books they're going to print. And then it's your launch that determines whether they're going to put any more resources behind your book going forward. And so for publishers, the launch is really important. For anybody who's their own publisher, well, if your launch isn't good, you still have the rest of your life. You can still push that book and really work to achieve your goals. So that's kind of the first broken part, because I see a lot of people who maybe only sell, 100 books on their launch and they go, oh no, like this was a failure. And to me, that's not necessarily a failure. That's your starting point. That's day one in this long journey that you're going to have ahead of you. And so then the other piece that is, I wouldn't say broken in the industry, but it's this measurement of sales as are you actually successful? Well, how many books did you sell? And yes, that is one thing that you can measure, and it's a useful piece of information. But for a lot of authors, sales isn't the #1 thing that you're writing this book for. It's that branding. It's that bigger picture. Is my business growing? Am I getting speaking engagements from this book? But if the only thing you're measuring is sales, you may be missing the fact that while you've been focused on, trying to get book sales, you've missed out on, many speaking opportunities, or you've missed out on the time you could have been investing in using your book to open the doors to attract the ideal clients to your business. So I wrote Self Promote and Succeed to really start helping authors look at the bigger picture and then break it down as to, okay, this is my bigger picture goal. This is what my strategy will be. These are my tactics, and these are the ways I'm going to measure the things I'm doing in order to achieve, my bigger picture goals. So I wanted to share that as a foundation. And then I would love for you guys to kind of lead me where you will get the most value, because I could talk about any one thing for a really long time. So I want it to be something that's meaningful to you as far as book marketing, book sales goes.
Susan put something here. I have books in several genres: children's picture books, ukulele music, Christian, memoir. I don't want to ignore any of them, and they are all part of my story. What is the best way to incorporate several genres along with your personal story into your author brand?
Awesome. And I see you're reading my new book, so thank you. That's awesome.
Good.
Book marketing is author marketing. And so there's kind of two things that come through my mind when I see this. First is, what's most important to you? Like, what are you, if you're trying to grow your author brand and really bring people into your ecosphere, or whatever you want to call it, in order to, sell more books, then to me, my number one goal is getting people to subscribe to a newsletter and really building that relationship with them. That would be my number one focus. And so everything that I do, you'll promote yourself in different ways to different outlets, obviously, given the different audiences that you have. But my outcome for each of those things would be to get them on a newsletter list. Probably, given that you have very different topics, I don't think they all would fit on the same newsletter. You'd want to be making sure that you're segmenting those lists and, sending content relevant to each of those lists. But that would be, whenever I hear brand building and your author brand, and I see somebody with a lot of books, I always think, email newsletter list, and anything that builds a list would be the best thing that you could be doing. And then the other piece that I saw with that is also, I think I kind of addressed it, but the different audiences does make it a little challenging to kind of, I think you want to pick and choose, and you may break it up in a calendar year, or you may break it up in how you do your outreach, but there's going to be different things that you're offering as far as when you're pitching yourself to, say, for a podcast or for an event. Ukulele is going to be very different than Christian book versus a memoir. So you'll probably have to figure out what's most important to you to drive the growth around your brand and where you want to take your brand next.
I was going through kind of the things on your website here, and you talk about, part of the book is what marketing and launch strategy is right for you and your goals. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, you bet. So a lot of people plan for a bestseller. They're like, how do you want to launch? I want it to be a bestseller. And so what we always do is we break down, partly the goals, but a lot of times we find the launch comes down to your resources more than your goals. So of course, most of us would love for it to be, a USA Today or a Wall Street Journal bestseller, or, those things. But, on the same token, we don't have the time, money, energy, or even audience to invest in getting there at this stage. So what we like to do is look at the goals, but we also look at the resources that are going to be behind this particular launch. And in a lot of ways, Self Promote and Succeed is an example of that. It's not the kind of book that we would expect to go on the USA Today or the Wall Street Journal bestseller. This is a nonfiction book marketing book. The audience for that isn't gigantic. And so we didn't throw everything we've got behind it as far as a launch, because we're going to be driving a lot of marketing effort towards it over the coming, months and years to build out some different, more strategic things that we're doing at book launchers. So, from a resource perspective, we maybe had the audience to do a bigger launch than what we did, but we didn't have, or me in particular, didn't have the energy to put behind it in order to, make it in a gigantic launch. And that wasn't our goal for this particular book. The entire team is really focused on a book that will release in 2025, I believe. And that one, we do want to do a really big launch to kind of have as much fun with that launch as we possibly can. So that's one thing, is kind of considering your own energy, your time and energy resources are really important when it comes to a launch, but also your audience. So if you're thinking you're going to launch to one of these, periodical bestseller lists, you have to be pretty darn confident that you're going to sell 5,000 at a minimum copies in a week, and more likely at least 8,000 in a given week. So you would typically launch on a Tuesday, and that's measured Tuesday to Monday to make the list, Tuesday to Tuesday, however you want to go. And so you want to sell at least 8,000 books. So how are you going to do that? Well, in a pre-sale period, you need to have a substantial audience that's going to be buying it. Some people will do this through, bulk orders and things like that. But, you still have to be confident that you're going to sell it, because if you don't have that audience, you can pay for ads all you want. And of course, you can also pay companies that will, send gift cards out into the world and have them game the system so you can actually buy your way onto the bestseller list. But, again, you have to have a bigger picture strategy as to why it's going to be worth that investment for you to actually buy your way onto the list. Because I know people who've done it and they believe it helped them as far as consulting fees went, to say they were a Wall Street Journal bestseller, but it didn't help as far as number of reviews they got, because the fake people didn't read the book. They just went out and bought the book for the gift card with the gift card and got paid for their hourly wage for doing that. So that's kind of what I'm talking about as far as like goals and matching it. And so our 4 strategies that we kind of lay it out and mix and match is, that periodical bestseller. So you've got the audience, you've got the money, you've got the time, you're ready to invest in a big push and probably like a 3 to 4 month time period before you launch in order to launch on a periodical bestseller list. Then we also have we call it the phased momentum launch, which is where a lot of our authors land, which is they're going to do whatever they can with the audience that they've got, but their goal is really to build momentum post-launch. So they're going to launch the book as best as they can. And then every single day, every single week, every single month, they're going to do things like ads and, podcasts and live appearances and, things with groups and associations. And they're just going to build their audience and build momentum. And then we also have something that we call the momentum launch, which is, somebody has an audience. We like to say you have at least, 5 to 10,000 people in your audience. You have a clear kind of thing that you can do to give them value. So maybe it's, joining a live group where you're going to do some training, or maybe it's access to a course, but you have some sort of an incentive that you're going to give them for buying books at launch and, getting them into your, system, if you want to call it that. But really, you're just trying to drive sales. And you might even drive them very specifically for print books or very specifically for ebooks if you're trying to, rank on one of these lists, or just rank on Amazon in the print book category, in the audiobook category. And so that launch is quite popular as well, because you don't have to have a gigantic list. Having friends or colleagues that have lists that will also promote your book, that can be very beneficial. And so that launch is another strategy that we have. And then we also have the Amazon bestseller launch. And that's a very common launch strategy as well. And that doesn't take as much for audience, but you do need to be fairly confident that you're going to drive, depending on your category, 50 to 100 sales in a day. And that's ebooks primarily. We usually use a 99-cent ebook for your launch. And we get ebook sales sites to participate. We get you to send emails to your list. We get you to recruit other people to email. And, we don't play any category games. We put you in the absolute best categories that we can find for your book. But then, you promote it on that. And most of our launches get that 99. If they do a 99-cent ebook in their launch week, most of them get this without a lot of strategy behind it. But it does take, having an audience that's going to buy your book on a specific day.
What are some of the common mistakes, Julie, that authors making with regard to marketing and book launching?
One of them is giving up, right? Like kind of what I said at the beginning, which is, their book doesn't sell and then they go, oh, well, that didn't work. Or they'll try a few things. And a lot of people try things that they see works for other people. But one of the issues with that is, you might say, oh, this is what Julie did for her launch. Well, I have 52,000 subscribers on my booklaunchers.tv that I've been, communicating with and growing that audience for 6 years. If you don't have an existing audience, what I've done might not work for you. And I see a lot of people do that, is they go, well, this is what this successful person did. I don't know if anybody saw the Alex Hormozi launch. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I did. I did. I watched it.
And so now I'm getting all these people that go, I want to launch just like Alex Hormozi. And I'm like, great. Are you going to spend 2 years with your book done, spending money on advertising to get your audience to be 200,000 people that are going to show up for your live stream? Then if you are, then great, we can do an Alex Hormozi launch. But, a lot of people underestimate what has gone into the effort and the work. They just see the results. And so I think a lot of people give up too early, and they also really, it's like the old saying, you overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in, 2 years or 5 years or whatever the time frame is. And I think a lot of authors do that. They really overestimate what launch is going to be, and they underestimate what they can actually accomplish if they just keep doing something every single day to promote their book. And they look back after a year and they're like, wow, I can't believe I've done all these things, met all these cool people, and, grown my brand in such a cool way.
I was just looking also on your website. It shows buy now for special bonuses. So tell us about the way that you're using these special bonuses for the book and how that would help. And we could use that in our own launches as well.
My team put this together, but we're doing 3 different levels of bonuses. And one of the things I'm doing with this particular book is I'm giving the audiobook away for free. And I will eventually put it on Findaway Voices, so that it goes on Spotify and also on Audible. I don't love the way Audible treats authors. So I was hesitant to put my book, launch it on Audible. And the goal of this book is to grow the brand of book launchers and to grow our audience. And so as part of that, we decided that we will give an audio version of the book away to anybody that buys a copy in launch. And then post-launch, I'll be running ads that will give the audiobook away for free in exchange for email addresses. And I filmed it, and it's going to be on YouTube, and it's also on BookFunnel. So you can download the audio through that. So that's one thing. So buy one book and you're going to get a few marketing templates that will help you with your, launch outreach. So reaching out to people pre-launch for book reviews and things like that. So a lot of value just for buying one book. But then for 3 books, you're going to get those templates. Then you're also going to get, and the audiobook, and then you're also going to get some roadmaps. So kind of those 4 launch strategies that I just talked about, it's going to break those strategies down into, here's what you need to do 3 weeks before launch. Here's what you need to do 5 months before launch, kind of in a time frame, reverse engineering what you need to do for each of those launches, and a little bit more finite detail as to what to choose for each of them. And I think there's something else in there. Oh, and you're a publishing roadmap. So if you're not familiar with the whole publishing process, it gives you the publishing roadmap. And then the final version is, if you buy 10 copies of the book, you're going to get access to our foundation library. And our foundation library has videos because book launchers, we have writers and writing coaches all the way up to, a team of people who helps you market your book. So we have all the people in between, editing, design, all those things. So our foundation library actually has only been for our clients to date. And we have 153 videos plus email templates and examples of media kits, media training, creating your sound bites and pitches for pitching to media, pitching to speaking engagements, plus all the way down to writing, where you're trying to figure out, what do I put in this chapter? So we've got chapter templates, we've got outline templates. It's a really, really robust database to help people. And you get that if you buy 10 copies of the book. So that was all the stuff my team put together with our bonuses. And it's all stuff that we had, but it's high value. It's things that either you would pay for if you were interested in these things, or in the case of the foundation library, you can't get access without being a client normally.
So Tanya has questions around marketing strategy. When you receive professional reviews, she says that she got a Kirkus starred review and also got an email today saying that it will be featured in their November newsletter. Also, her book will be on another of their lists for December, but I have to keep what that exact news is quiet. Okay, Tanya. So after providing you with the review, many review organizations then keep emailing you about paid promotions. What advice do you have around these paid promotion opportunities? And I think more than anything is, how do you make the most of this amazing starred review, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go first is, so I've seen the Kirkus. First, congratulations. Being featured in their newsletter is not every author gets that. And I don't know what the December one is, but that's very cool. So congratulations on that. That does speak to your book. So they obviously thought your book was great or they wouldn't offer that feature. But, when you get an editorial review and it's good, the first thing you want to do is make sure that it's on your Amazon page under the editorial reviews. And you don't have to post the whole review. You can post an excerpt of it, because sometimes the reviews are quite long. So we'll just choose the best sentence or two and put that there. Then you want to also put that on your social media. And if it's really good and it's from, one of the reputable, like Kirkus is good, but if it's like Publishers Weekly or, Forward, I can't remember all the ones that libraries and bookstores care about, but there's only a handful of the editorial reviews that they really care about. And if you get those, then I would put it on your media kit, or if you have a sales sheet for approaching bookstores and libraries, I would put that front, very top of your sales sheet, because again, those editorial reviews, they really do care about that. That matters a lot to them. So those are some of the things I would immediately do, because you'll find leverage. Then I would put it on your website and kind of anywhere that you're talking about your book, putting those reviews on there as well. That would be part one. And then depending on what you're doing, this can also be good material. Like for me, if I had a really great review, again, I'm running ads I'm not running them yet, but for my audiobook, I'm going to be running them. Those kind of things are great imagery for test that. If you run BookBub ads, those kind of little pieces, excerpts can be great for the BookBub image as well. BookBub ads are really image heavy. So, really having a couple key texts, like even just pulling out a bolded 3 words from the Kirkus review and just saying Kirkus review with the pictures, those can go a long way. A+ content also, you can take an excerpt from your review and put it on your A+ content. As for what they're asking for the paid, I would go back to your bigger picture goals and really look at what they're offering and does it fit with your bigger picture goals. Most of the time, if I look at what they're offering and I think about where is my ideal reader hanging out, my ideal reader typically isn't going to being reached by what the Kirkus review team is going to be doing promotionally. Maybe bookstores, maybe libraries. But again, if your bigger picture goal is to grow your brand, grow your business, your money is probably much better spent investing in places that are going to put your book directly in front of your ideal reader. And again, if they're suggesting a press release or anything like that, press releases can get you links back to your website. But besides that, I very rarely see a press release and I see April nodding, but I very rarely see
that's true.
A press release doing anything in terms of actually landing you any sort of media whatsoever without some outreach. Press releases can work, but you need that targeted pitch and then have the press release as part of that targeted pitch, or have them ask for more information and then send the press release. So, and I don't know what the package includes, but those are the things I've seen. So that's what I can offer from this vantage.
Neil asks, is there a strategy that you recommend for anyone who gave up too early and wants to get back to promoting their book with a small email list?
Yeah. I mean, anybody with a small email list, what I always tell people is, focus on other people's audiences. So building relationships and looking for people who have your reader in their audience. And there's lots of strategies and tips we can go into on that. But going to your question specifically, whenever somebody comes to me and they've said, okay, I haven't been promoting my book, it's not doing anything. What I want to first understand is, what did you do and what worked? And so, looking at what worked, you can then start to replicate that. Now, if nothing worked, then I'm going to look at the book and I'm going to go, okay, does this book align with the audience? Is there some sort of a tweak we can make to make it more appealing for whatever it is that you're trying to, whoever you're trying to appeal to or whatever you're trying to offer? Sometimes, depending on what worked and what didn't, and what you did try and what you didn't try, sometimes relaunching with a new edition or a revised edition can work really, really well to, give it some new momentum and new life. Because if it launched and went stale and you don't have reviews and you don't have much else going on for it and not a lot worked, then a revised edition gives you a new reason to do outreach and talk to people. You can update any mistakes that you saw and just position it to be a little bit sharper to appeal to certain audiences. But if things were working before, I would say go back to what worked and see if you can't reignite it by leaning into whatever was working previously and not do the other things, right? Because all of us try different things and you might feel like, oh, only this is working. Well, I would go, that's working, do more.
Any suggestions for getting unstuck? Like once you get past that initial release, what are some of the things you coach your authors to go to continue to keep eyes on books and keep driving that traffic?
There's a few things. So, I mean, part of it, our authors, our team's pitching them. So there's always something going on. We're always doing outreach. But, you can sign up for, Podmatch or some of these other podcast sites. And Podmatch is the only one that's coming to mind, but I know there's a couple that, you can post and podcasters can post. And it's kind of like a dating site for podcast guests and podcasters. So that's one thing you can do, and this is why I say do one thing every day. So you could do that. You could post on it. And then, every couple of days you can look and see if there's somebody that you want to, pitch to or submit yourself for. And then you can also be strategically thinking about who is somebody that I would love to be on their live stream show or be on their podcast or on their, on their stage, and, strategically start getting in front of them. And that doesn't mean you're going to write them and go, I've got a new book. Will you write a review? Or the other one that always I get all the time is, I just want to pick your brain, those kind of things. Those things don't work. But what does work is if you're at a live event and there's a speaker and you guys have a great fit as far as audience alignment, post pictures of them speaking, share some of your takeaways. 2 weeks after the event is over, post another picture of you implementing what they've just taught you. And then when they post something, comment on it. Just slowly but surely become a familiar person to that person. And, it doesn't work every single time. So, try this with multiple people. But what can happen is over time, you'll just become familiar and trusted to them. And there may be an opening where something comes up and all of a sudden you're on their live stream or they're saying, hey, does anybody know somebody who can do this? And you help them and they go, what can I do to support you? And now the door is wide open for that next step in that relationship. And so I think and you don't have to be live to do this. You can do this just on social media. You can, even ask people. I love looking at LinkedIn and going, who do I know that knows this person? Can I get a warm introduction to them? Is there some way I can learn about them and learn what they're working on so that I can bring value? And the other thing with that, bringing value, is I want to figure out where I can bring value before I contact this person. I'm not going to write them and say, how can I support you? What value can they don't know me. So that does not work, right? I appreciate, people's intentions when they say that. However, you're making me work, right? If I have to figure out how you can help me, I now have to work. But if you've done the work by contacting mutual friends or colleagues, or you've stalked the person on social media or listened to their podcast regularly, so you know what they're working on, and you've come up with a way you can help them, you can get ins. And so, you could do certain things each day. And that's what I would recommend, so you don't feel stuck and you don't feel overwhelmed either, because there's 1,000 things you can do. I would pick a couple of things and just, every day you're doing one of them.
You mentioned something, book funnel, and had a recent debate with one of my authors about book funnel. And there's book funnel, book sprout, book and story origin. And then I use Wix and I can deliver things through my own Wix site. How have you used these kinds of things? And have you seen a benefit of one over another?
Yeah, so we use Booksiron and Booksprout. We use those because you can get reviews. So, and it doesn't cost very much. It's very low cost. I do a full comparison. If you want to kind of see comparison, you can go to booklaunchers.tv and type in Booksprout versus Booksirons, and I go do a full comparison. So we do use those for getting reviews, and they have different books perform better on the sites. And I actually don't have rhyme or reason, because some of the books will think, oh, this one did really well, so this one will too. And it doesn't. So I don't know. It's not very expensive. So you can use both to get reviews. And you can also use them for ARCs and advanced reviewer copies. I personally, and we use them for my books, but also for all of our clients' books. But me, I like BookFunnel. I use BookFunnel for, if I'm promoting the ebook and I'm getting people to sign up to give me their email address to get the ebook. And same with the audiobook. They now have audio. It's still in beta, but it's pretty much ready to roll out. It's not, they call it beta, but it's not really in beta anymore, I don't think. And so you can distribute your audiobook through BookFunnel as well. And so I use that, and that's where I'll be driving the ads that are going to be offering the audiobook for free. That's what I'm going to use it for, because it connects with Zapier to our email server. So they go right into our funnel. So for me, that's the kind of the differentiator for those. BookFunnel doesn't have a reviewer community like Book Sirens and Booksprout do.
Somebody mentioned something about like they'll handle all of the delivery for you. So what does that involve, the BookFunnel? Is it really handling like issues? Because what I have problems with is people not being able to, oh, you said that I could download this ebook, but I'm having a problem. So are they going to handle the people that have problems with downloading something? Or do you still have to deal with that issue?
Yeah, usually they'll deal with it. So people will still email us if there's an issue sometimes, but we're able to redirect it to BookFunnel.
How did you get started with building some of the relationships that you have, and how's that contributed to your growth on your channel and on your following?
I mean, I never look at it as transactional. I'm always really looking for the relationship. And so if something positive comes out of it from a business perspective, that's great. But, I'm there to add value and to help other people. And so when I'm out there creating videos or meeting people, I'm not in it going, okay, what am I going to get out of this? I'm a very strong introvert. So my approach is to stand at the wall until somebody pulls me off the wall. But once I'm off the wall, I befriend an extrovert who then I follow them around and they introduce me to everybody when we're in person. But, besides that challenge in life of being that strong introvert, what I really do is try to add value. And I love speaking, which sounds funny because some of my fellow introverted friends go, how can you possibly ever get on a stage? But as an introvert, I find getting up on a stage and adding value to other people in the audience. And then I step off the stage and people come to me and I don't have to worry about, making small talk because they come straight to me. They already know me and they go, okay, here's my question for you. And I'm like, great, I can help you. That's how I've always done it. And when I launched my first book that went to #1, the reason it went to #1, I had a 9,000, almost a 10,000 person email list, which is not enough to go to #1 on Amazon and print books. But it's because of all these people that I had spent years building relationships with. And I had added a ton of value to their audiences by giving them articles or by, getting on their stages or by, doing some video content for them, helping them edit their books. And I was a contributor to quite a few other books at that time. So when I said, I'm launching my book, they were all so excited to finally be able to reciprocate and support my book. So that was a big part of that book doing so well. And so it's a long game. And that's why I say, you're going to be posting pictures and commenting and doing things for a while. So make sure it's fun and you're enjoying it and you're adding value and kind of feeling that impact while you're doing it, because something may come of it, but something may not.
Tips and tactics to boost your Amazon visibility. Tell us more about that. I see that's part of what you're focusing on in the new book.
Yeah. I mean, one thing is just consistency. This is again where that launch model, like having that one big hit, is not a winning strategy for Amazon. They really are looking for that consistent conversion. So, that's what we really want to focus on, having activity on a regular basis going to your Amazon page and your Amazon book. The other thing I recommend, kind of, this is really in the weeds, but, don't send people to your Amazon page. A lot of authors just link to their Amazon page, say, go buy my book and send them to your page, or here's my book, because you're sending traffic that may or may not have buying intent to your page. And you really want to teach Amazon who is going to convert. And the more that traffic hits your page is converting traffic, the more Amazon's going to show your book. Like Amazon's algorithm is really smart. So the more that you can filter people. And so what we do, there's the universal book links, which you can get it through Draft to Digital, has a free universal book link. There's another one. Books to Read is Draft to Digital. I can't remember the other one. There's another one, but the universal book link we use is through Draft to Digital site. You don't have to be a Draft to Digital user in order to create your universal book link. But the power of the universal book link is you can direct people to that link and then they choose which store they want to buy from. They can also learn about you and your books before they click. And so they can get some information and then click on the exact store that they want to buy from. So that will improve, the traffic that you're sending to the Amazon site. You can send them to your website to download your ebook before they actually go and buy your book. There's lots of strategies for that. But I think, always remembering that you want to teach Amazon who to show your book to. And the more that the traffic that you do send to Amazon converts, the more Amazon's going to find other traffic like that and help you sell your book. So those are just some of the, kind of really in the weeds, but tactical things that I would recommend.
So if we're driving our family, friends, colleagues to our debut book, is that teaching Amazon the wrong, because they're not maybe necessarily people that would have bought the book to begin with, but they're supporting the author?
Yeah, I don't want my friends and family to buy my book. And that sounds funny, I know, but I want to teach Amazon who to show my book to. And, my friends who normally buy mysteries and my mom who normally buys cookbooks, I don't really want Amazon to think that's my buyer. And so what you really want to do is if they want to support you, send them to your local library to request a copy of your book at the local library. That's the best way your family and friends can support you. And so for driving that traffic, you want your ideal reader. So that's the number one focus. And one of the things that I haven't seen it as much, I think it still happens, but it's those groups, become a bestseller, and they'll put you in a group, or they again have these they send out those e-cards and they have these e-card buyers. And what happened, I have a real estate investing friend of mine that paid to be part of this group. He paid $5,000 to be in this group of 50 people, and they all bought each other's ebook on a designated time. They all got their bestseller flag, which was the goal. But a year later was when he called me and he was like, my book is not selling. And I went to the Also Bots, and his book's a very specific real estate book. And in the Also Bots, there was Curing Cancer. There was Law of Attraction. There was a health and fitness book. So, and this is a year later. So that's how powerful that hit was. Because that's all as a result of 50 people who would never have bought his book normally buying his book. And it just wreaked havoc with his algorithm forever.
Barbara says, what is the best way to approach influencers? So I'm guessing that means building that relationship over time. And I think you talked about that a little bit already, but anything like influencers specifically that are in our niche, I would assume that we're following them and we're doing some of the other stuff that you had mentioned.
I like to always kind of talk about who are we looking at as influencers, because we used to ask our clients, give us your influencer list. And of course, we got Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and, Oprah and Gwyneth Paltrow. And I don't know, it's all these people. And that's great. Sure, they're influencers. And I'm certain that a mention from them of your book would do wonders. However, it's not reasonable for most of us to think that that's going to be our first influencer that shouts out our book. And so we want to look at kind of what I would call a niche influencer first. And so a niche influencer is somebody I used to do a lot of CrossFit, and I'm from Canada originally. So I always kind of default to Patrick Vellner is a very famous CrossFitter in the CrossFit community. Now, anybody here who hasn't done any CrossFit will have no idea who Patrick Vellner is. That's a perfect example of a niche influencer, because if I've written a fitness book or even a book about CrossFit, and I can get an endorsement from Patrick Vellner, my audience is going to know who he is and they're going to care. It's also going to be a lot easier for me to get connected to Patrick than it is going to be to get connected to somebody that everybody knows the name of. So I like to start with kind of people who are niche famous. If somebody is niche famous, or not even famous, but niche, they have a good audience in the niche, and that niche is your audience. You guys have that shared audience. Start finding ways to get connected. And that does go back to some of the tips I already shared. Go to LinkedIn and see if you have shared connections. Do you have people in common that you can start to get warm introductions from? How can you start to appear in front of them so that you're a familiar face when you do get that intro, posting on their, commenting on their feeds, posting on their social media, and then just pay attention to what they're talking about. And if there's a good fit, like say they're posting about, maybe they're supporting the Humane Society, or they've got some sort of a passion project, and there's something you can do to support them there, do it. That's a great opening. And if nothing else, you've done something to help somebody. And if it goes somewhere, great.
Most of the authors here, at least that are here with us live today, are children's book authors that have worked with me for a while. So I know children's books are really popular around Christmas time. Any advice for Christmas releases?
Well, I can't speak to children's books, but I can tell you that we don't launch books in December because December is a terrible month to launch a book. It doesn't mean people aren't buying books in December, but what it means is unless you've been planning really far in advance, all the ad space is gone. All the ads are more expensive than any other time of year. Trying to get media to pay attention to your book when they're on half staff, or a lot of people put their shows on hiatus for the holidays. And then, it's like a long list. And then all your reviewers who you're hoping would be your early reviewers, they had really good intentions, but they're busy going to Christmas parties, doing their shopping, getting things ready, decorating, baking. They're doing everything but reviewing your book. And so it can be a really frustrating time to try to launch your book. I mean, we would launch in November. November is great. September for us, again, this is nonfiction. September is a really great launch month. January, February, March, those are great launch months. June's a great launch month. We just generally stay away from July and August and December, just because of how hard it is to get to attention and to get people to follow through on all of those things that you really need people to follow through on.
And you talked a little bit about media attention and getting media attention. Is that something you can comment on? What is your typical approach to getting attention for your authors?
Yeah, every book's a little different, but we usually start with the local market area and find a local angle if possible. So, and again, this is where every book is different, because we had a true crime book that got national attention really easily, but it came out at the same time as the trial was happening. It was really lucky. Because we can't time the trial. That was set by judges, but it just happened that the trial was on when the book launched. So that had national media attention. So you want to look at what's happening in the local market, or even in that industry or that landscape. When I was in real estate, every time there was a housing market index report that was released or an interest rate change, those were news items that I could angle in and talk about real estate investing and the housing market for media. So that would be an angle. You're not pitching your book to the media. That's the big thing I can say, is it's never about the book. You'll mention the book. The media is usually really good about making sure they mention the title of your book, sometimes showing it on the screen. But generally, this is about, what are you going to tell their audience and what's happening, because it's news or relevant, what's happening that you're going to tag into and comment on. So it's being aware of that local, or even that, whatever market or whatever channel it is, and getting in on there. If it's a magazine, one thing I would recommend is having read at least 3 to 6 back issues, and any topic that's related to yours, note what you can say that is similar but different, so that you're able to say, like, I loved this article that you did on XYZ, and I think your audience would love this follow-up tip and this follow-up strategy or this follow-up piece that, just builds on that angle. And that obviously ties back to whatever it is that you talk about in your book. So that's a whole bunch of tips, but yeah, it's always an angle, and it's always channel and outlet specific.
Do you also, Julie, build relationships with journalists and people in different magazines, and it is building a relationship and going back to them as a publisher for help with, for your authors and things like that? Is that contact really important for folks like us?
Yes, absolutely. We do that to make our job easier and more effective and efficient. But as an author, you could do the same thing, and this is it. Once you get we call it a win. So once you get a win of some kind, whether that's a feature or an interview or something like that, first of all, crush it, like do an awesome job. If you're writing an article, send it fully edited and ready to be published, so that they don't have to, change it and edit it and all those things. So be easy to work with, submit things on time, show up prepared. And after that happens, send a thank you. After you've sent the thank you, you can follow up, days or weeks later and say, hey, here's an additional idea that we could do. They're looking for great content. And if you've proven to be somebody who's going to deliver great content and make their job easier, and now you're showing up with another cool idea, at least half of the time you're going to get yes. And you're going to become, you have a really good shot at becoming a regular feature for that outlet. So I would almost say beware. If you're really good at this, you can find yourself getting a part-time job, which has happened to me a few times with magazines and outlets. I end up turning them down after a while going, okay, like I'm an unpaid intern here.
Right. That's funny. Susan was talking about also in the comments about collaboration with others and how that can help grow. Is that something that you also recommend for your audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something we do so that, I'm sharing April to my audience. She's sharing me to hers. I do that with a lot of other people. Self-publishing with Dale is somebody I've done a lot of collaborations with. I always give the example. He has a book award now, but Stephen Serrell, he would always comment on every one of my videos and he retweeted everything I put out there and he would post comments and he'd post pictures of my book and he did all these things. And then one day he said, hey, if anybody has a dinosaur costume, I'm doing this thing with my book and I'd love people to pose with a dinosaur costume. And my son happened to have a dinosaur costume. So I got a copy of my book and I got my son to take a picture with it. He didn't ask me to do it, but because he'd been so front and center for months, when he had that ask out, I was like, oh, let's do something nice for him. And so I did that for him. And then he created book awards and we've done a lot of other things together. But I find that stuff happens naturally a lot, which is why I'm a huge proponent of just adding value to other people's lives and kind of seeing where things go.
I love that. Always about adding value and just the friendships and collaborations that I have made. I find I'm learning things all the time and it just enriches my network, but it's all about what can I do to serve? And then it tends to come back. And that's a beauty of it. That's not why we do it, but it is a beautiful thing when it happens and when we are actually able to collaborate together. And for those of you that don't know, I actually interviewed Julie for my Author to Authorpreneur Summit. So you'll get to see some other collaborations and some things we're doing together. And you'll be able to enroll in that and register for that really soon. Talk a little bit about your upcoming book and how others can support you, where they can find more information about you and the new book.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Well, I mean, Susan's already got it. So the greatest gift Susan and anyone else can give me is a review on Amazon or your favorite book buying website. That helps me find other fabulous authors who need book marketing support. So that's the biggest thing. But if you just want to hang out, booklaunchers.tv is my YouTube channel. That's my passion. I put my heart and soul into that channel. Every Tuesday and Fridays, a new video, and every other Tuesday, which is tomorrow, actually, I go live at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you ever have questions or you just want to say hi, that's a fun way to interact and hang out. And I definitely pay attention to everybody who's commenting on the channel because, again, it's my passion project.
I love it. And the book is amazing. And I can't wait to get mine in the mail. Self-Promote and Succeed. And prior to this one, you also had Self-Publish and Succeed, which for my audience is a fantastic book that everybody should have on their shelves, because I think that the information and the knowledge you share there is going to help everybody who's looking to self-publish and be successful.
Thank you. I got to tell you, we thought we were so smart naming it Self-Publish and Succeed and Self-Promote and Succeed, but we abbreviate them SPS. So internally now, nobody has any idea which book we're talking about.
Oh.
so we can't stick with that for the next one. So just a side note for anybody naming their books, we thought we were really clever, but now we have to call it SPS 2.
Well, I am so happy to have you today, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Bye.